Live and welcome to PM Express tonight. On the show tonight, Rosewood Investigative report, another clearing job. It's a conversation that was sparked last week Friday when the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources launched its report after weeks, months in fact, of investigations into Rosewood allegations made by an international environmental body. What did that body find? Now, the committee that was set up found also that says no MPP member was involved in the illegal trade. And this was based on allegations made by the International Environmental Body, naming some key New Patriotic Party personalities they allege are involved in the rosewood trade, the legal rosewood trade. But this report clears them, clears any official, particularly officials with the Forestry Commission. Now, the committee says the EIA overstated the amount of harvested rosewood from Ghana's forest. This organization that did this report had placed the figure of rosewood harvested between 2012 and 2019 at 6 million, right? But the committee found this was far less than that, in the region of 4 million. Then they made some recommendations, far-reaching recommendations, in spite of not finding that some elements within the party and the Forestry Commission were complicit in the matter, and clear them. In spite of not finding any guilt or culpability there, they found institutional lapses that they believe encouraged the illicit rosewood trade, and so they make some recommendations. One of them is that the BNI must undertake a forensic audit of previously issued permits, look at what the permits were saying. They want more interagency collaboration because they found that the agencies were not collaborating, and so made it possible for those who want to, I guess, dupe the system, made it possible for them to do so. Now, another thing that they recommended is for the government to be more strict, especially at the ports of where the rosewood is exported. Now, there have been 3 allegations on the back of the report that was issued on Friday. The NDC is challenging the committee's work fundamentally. They believe it's a whitewash. Now, they describe the setting up of the committee as a cover-up by the government, really, because some appointees there were fingered. The NDC is therefore making a strong case that this was nothing more than a clearing job. But is it? We'll interrogate that when we return from this. Stay with us. And thank you for staying with us here on PM Express. My guest in the studio is the MP for Bulls South, Dr. Clement Park. He's here because, not only because he's a member. You're a member of which committee again in Parliament?
I'm actually a member of the Public Accounts Committee and the Education Committee of Parliament.
Yeah.
But, you know, the issue of rosewood has been a personal crusade.
In this constituency?
Yes.
Your constituency has been I guess, the theater.
Largely decimated.
Yeah. Decimated by this particular, let's say, the theater for the Rosewood War, if there's anything like that. And so definitely his people, and if you're watching from Bulls South, your MP has been fighting on your behalf, except that there's a few things to interrogate him on the claims he's made, but also the record that when it comes to Rosewood and what can be done specifically to deal with it. He has many concerns about the way the matter has been handled by the Forestry Commission, by the Lands and Natural Resources Ministry as well. Recently, there's been a probe that has been done. In fact, it's on the basis of that probe that we want to have this conversation. He himself was the subject of an invitation to be part of that probe, and he turned it down. But the outcome of that probe, which we introduced at the beginning, was that, in essence, all those accused by the International Environmental Agency that did the investigative report were exonerated, although the committee set up by the Lands and Natural Resources, the Lands and Natural Resources Ministry found, they say, serious interagency lapses, institutional failure, etc. But people were exonerated. Clement Park says he's not buying that. Later on, we'll speak with Kojo Wuse-Friye, a.k.a. Sir John, who is the head of the Forestry Commission. A lot of his executives, some of them were accused, are implicated in that report as well, but they've been exonerated now. He's agreed to speak to us. We'll see if we can get him on the telephone line and get his perspective on the issues. But Mr. Park, thank you for your time here on PM Express. This is a multi-million-dollar problem, destroying environments in your part of the country. So why did you turn down that invitation to be part of an investigative body that was designed to get to the heart of the problem and uncover the actual state of the corruption when it comes to these roadsuits? This was an opportunity, wasn't it?
Yes, in some ways you can say that it was an opportunity, and of course I think it is only fair that I say good evening to our viewers. As you said, I know that there are people from Bursa, people from the areas where this menace is beginning to have a negative impact in as far as their livelihoods are concerned, watching. So it's only proper that I greet them. And as I do customarily, I must greet the Bursa people in Buli, Busnamena, Pusine Junai. I had a chance to be one of the persons to appear before the committee. And it's indeed true that the committee wrote to me. But I turned the invitation down.
Why?
Largely because I felt that a critical study of the EIA report, I mean, this is the US-based Environmental Investigation Agency, had indicted, or if you like, had made allegations against certain institutions and certain persons working in certain institutions or being complicit. And so when I saw the composition of the committee, instantly, I was of the view that the committee would not be able to do a good, thorough job.
What about the composition?
Well, the composition of the committee was made up, and I have the list, by 7 persons, and only 2 of them, the representative from civil society and a representative from the private sector, were the only persons that I deemed were independent of the problem. You had a representative of the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, representative of the Forest Research Institute of Ghana, representative from the Ghana Customs, the chairman of the Parliamentary Select Committee on Lands and Forestry. And the committee was being chaired by one of the deputy ministers for Lands and Natural Resources, the Honorable Benito Owusubio. So all these that I've listed, if you go to the EIA report, the complicity, the connivance, the collusion that the EIA spoke about was around these same institutions. And so I could not make myself available to appear before a committee that was composed of elements drawn from institutions that were said to be complicit. If the committee was composed of persons not drawn from the same institutions that the report said were complicit, I wouldn't have had a problem going and appearing before the committee.
What would you have recommended the composition should have been in terms of its membership?
It should have been drawn from entities devoid of the very same entities that the report said were complicit. So essentially, I was of the view, and I believe that my comments, you know, within the context of the committee's work is indicative of what I believed was to happen. You certainly did not expect that the ministry or the deputy minister or forestry commission officials would do work that would say that their institutions or their bosses or persons that they deal with are complicit and culpable.
This is what it says on the general allegations of corruption, that the committee did not have adequate evidence to establish corruption cases against any officials of government. Isn't that a fair conclusion to come to if you indeed did not have adequate evidence? You say there's adequate evidence?
Well, I say they could have been adequate evidence if the committee was not composed of those who were on the committee, drawn from the institutions that they were drawn from. Then? I say so because it is not only just the EIA report. And if you look at the methodology that the committee itself deployed, you will notice that It says committee's methodology. One, DEC's study of existing reports, including the EIA report, salvage permits, contracts, the 2013 and 2017 Rosewood Inventory report, blah, blah, blah. But when you have an issue of this nature, one would have expected that the EIA would have been invited to appear.
They invited the EIA. They asked the EIA, to present
the
evidence.
They did not invite the EIA.
What difference would that have made?
It would have made a difference because when you are there, these are the authors of a diamond report, on the back of which government saw it fit to put together a committee. And remember that this was not the first report on this matter. Your own Joy FM did a fantastic documentary which captured by and large a lot of the elements that were reflected, although not poignantly stated the way it was stated in the EIA report. But even government did not see the need. After that report aired a number of times, and I had made statements, I had issued a statement, government didn't see the need to call Joy or to even call
on that. I've heard you say that, but on both counts of both the EIA report and the Joy one, the evidence was there, right? I mean, so for us, our evidence was captured in the documentary.
Yeah.
So what else would the human being be?
Why didn't the committee consider that? For example, I know that the UFM work was not considered. I mean, if I'm wrong.
But it considered the EIA, because the EIA was the subject of the
exactly.
But they had the EIA evidence.
You invite the EIA to appear before you. So you
said that
them.
The EIA giving up their evidence was not enough.
It wasn't. But because I know that the EIA is bound to respond to this report, the 77-page report.
You said they will, actually. We wrote to them.
They are going to respond.
Thankfully.
And that in itself tells you, that in itself should tell you that even they are not satisfied with the outcome of the committee.
Your friend and colleague, Benito Wusubio, just joined us on the telephone line. You say he was the chair of the committee?
Yes. I mean, I'm not saying it, but that is
the committee says.
I mean, his name is actually there. But I wanted to make a quick point.
Okay, he's on the line. Okay.
Very quick one.
Sure.
So that people understand why I have issues with the composition of the committee. The very important component, as far as I am concerned, was that the EIA report indicated that the powerful Chinese and Ghanaian traffickers were still harvesting and shipping rosewood out of the country, and that group, the powerful Chinese and their Ghanaian, collaborators, said that they had the help of ruling party members and complicity at all levels of government. Now, this is the core of the issue. So when you put together a committee drawn from the same institutions, by and large, even the same party, so to speak, you don't expect them to come and say, we are guilty.
But that is a serious allegation.
That is it.
But that would need some real serious evidence to stand.
And that is why the composition of the committee itself presented me with a problem. Because you can't ask the same people to make findings against themselves. It's almost impossible.
I mean, so I get what you're saying about the suspicions that the committee couldn't have done a better could have done a better job. I mean, but if you look at the evidence available, did any of the work that you've seen so far, particularly the EIE one, nail any politician, caught the person in the act? You know how Anas would do it. It's so self-evident you cannot dispute. Is there anything like that?
That is the more reason why I would have expected the committee to invite EIA. And they didn't. Asking them to provide
evidence. But if EIA had that evidence, one, they would have included in their report. Two, they would have made it available to the committee.
No, but they certainly would not give out everything they have.
But they would have definitely published it in their report, which was very comprehensive.
No, when they published the report, they did indicate that when invited, they will provide further and better particulars. And I believe that when the special prosecutor, and I know probably he has invited them, well, I filed a petition with the office of the special prosecutor. That is also
How long ago was this?
This was right before the government announced its committee. I had filed my petition to the office of the special prosecutor on this matter because I had anticipated that there would be an attempt to cover up. So I had to go to an entity.
You say you've been vindicated?
That I believed had the capacity to get to the bottom of this issue without any encumbrances.
Have you had any responses from the special prosecutor?
Yeah, from our sources, work is being done.
Work is being done.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to go into the specifics and the substance of some of the findings in the report and the Rosewood problem itself and how that's affecting your constituents and all. But I want to bring in the deputy Lands and Natural Resources Minister who chaired the committee, Mr. Usubio Benito. Mr. Usubio, thank you very much for joining us here on PM Express.
Yes, thank you and good evening to your listeners.
I am grateful. I am grateful that you could make time. I know you've been traveling the country, so thankful that. Thank you very much for making time to join us. In the studio with me is your colleague from Parliament, Mr. Dr. Park, who is raising concerns and questions about the composition of the committee that came up with the report recently that in essence could not find adequate evidence to establish corruption cases against any officials in government. He says that it was impossible for you to do a fair and impartial job because yourselves were complicit in the matter. What's your reaction to his conclusion?
I'll be very surprised if he says I'm complicit in this whole...
No, he means the political class, the government officials, etc.
No, yes, but let me say that I'll be very surprised because before I even became a deputy minister, I happened to be the ranking member of the Parliamentary Select Committee of Lands and Forestry. And I remember I did even ask a question on the floor of Parliament about this whole illegal trade in Rosewood. And even at that time, I quite remember the then Right Honourable Speaker refused to grant me the permission to ask that question. Yes. And I, who have been somebody who have all the time against illegal trading, would in this, no matter what species it is, I'll be very surprised that the Honourable Apak will say this about me and my class of people, as you put it. Please, sir. What I'll begin is to say that our committee's work is not the only work that has been done by any committee in Ghana. This is the second time within a short period that some investigations have been done on Rosewood. The first one happened to be one that was the Honourable.
I'm sorry, we're having a challenge with the line there.
Hello?
Yes, I could hear you. Sorry, we lost you briefly.
I'm sorry, I would have wished I was in the studio.
Yes, no problem, but we could hear you. We lost you briefly.
I have to file my nomination today.
Yes.
So I'm not in Accra.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Very important.
Yes, I'm just drawing a point. And what I'm saying is that this is not the first time. Clement Park, and then the Honourable Clement Park, and the Lands Committee of Parliament undertook an investigation that was sanctioned by the Speaker of Parliament. And they went around in Ghana, up to the north of Ghana, so ably supported by the Dr. Clement Park, to investigate on how this whole Rosewood was going on. The committee presented this report on the floor of Parliament. Unfortunately, that day, when the report, the Honourable Dr. Park that day was not in Parliament. Aside that, he's talking about the formation of the committee that he feels was wrong or was partisan. I think that he has, that is his perception, and so he's his choice. But then, let's just delve into it. As we speak now, there were 7 members on that committee. Of the 7, it was only I, the deputy minister for that ministry, and then the secretary to the committee who were from the ministry. The remaining 5, it included the chairman of the Land and Forestry Committee of Parliament, let's say one representative from civil society organizations and one research fellow from the CSIR, their division called Forest, a representative from the GRA who was nominated by the commissioner himself, and a former deputy minister of that same ministry during Kufuor's era, the President Kufuor's era. So, I'm surprised. We invited him to appear and to give us information and to help us. So at least we would have more information on the work that we're doing. He actually refused to attend to us.
Because he says that he didn't trust the committee.
Yes, but trust is a perception. It's based on his own objective. He is his own opinion. He can not to trust anybody in this world. That is his prerogative. That is his prerogative. But that doesn't mean that everything is wrong.
But Mr. Usubio, if you look at it...
That doesn't mean that everything is wrong.
If you look at the composition, and just look at
the composition, what's wrong with it?
I'm just
saying that we should have invited... I heard him saying that we should have invited the EIA.
Yes.
Dr. Park. We did invite the EIA. We did invite them. And they sent us information. The information that they had was sent to us. Some of them are audiovisual, video evidence that they claim they had. We have actually told you about all this. You are still saying that we never invited them. Why? Why are you not saying the truth? This is about the fifth time I am having a conversation or let's say an interview with him on the advent within the past 48 hours. And he's always keeps on saying the same thing. Please, I don't know what he's up to. Please, let's put the politics aside. This whole illegal trade in Rosewood is a canker that is actually bedeviling our
Mr. Usubio, just a quick question back, now that you've laid out the composition for me, just a quick question on the perception challenges that create. So, for example, you say there is the chairman of the Mines and Energy Committee, Lands and Forestry Commission, Committee in Parliament on the committee. There is your good self. There is one other representative from the ministry. And then there is a former deputy minister. All these are individuals either affiliated with the party or with the government. That creates a credibility challenge.
The secretary is a staff of the ministry. He has no, I would say he has no bearing, no allegiance to a party. He's a secretary. And he was the secretary. So you will see that he is also affiliated to the current government. He is a civil servant.
Couldn't the entire committee have been composed of independent people with the know-how on this particular subject, at least to give you a certain sense of cross-party acceptance as far as this is concerned?
That can be, or that's your opinion. But I will tell you that what we did was a good job, and they actually delved into every aspect of this whole trade, be it where it's being harvested illegally, where it's being exported illegally, to the extent that now, at least, the Republic of China, the People's Republic of China, is now in that yes, they are siding with this, and they are also going to ban illegal rosewood imports into their country.
So China is going to do this on the back of your report? Is China going to do this on the back of your report?
Yes. With them, we have been corresponding with them to the extent that finally what came out was that currently, for the past year, all the Rosewood that India
unfortunately, let's try and get Mr. Usubio. Forgive me, Mr. Wood. My producers will try and get a better connection to you so we could return and have a clearer line to you and have a conversation. But he makes a point. He says this work has been recognized globally, and they're making real significant progress. China is willing now to ban importation into China of rosewood from Ghana because of the findings of this committee.
Well, if that is true, I think that it augurs well for the advocacy to protect the environment. But the fact remains that even now, as we speak, in the advent of the EIA report, the advent of the Joy FM documentary, much more recently, another journalist did a fantastic piece on the issue. Only today, and I mean, this has always been the case, there are still indications that it is going on.
True.
So,
I mean, last year I traveled to one of the constituencies in the north. I saw a truckload of...
And that raises a number of questions.
But the committee admits it happened. The committee didn't say it didn't happen.
No, but you should remember that even up until this, you know, many government and public officials were in denial.
Yeah, but the committee admits it's a problem.
Yes, it does. But as to whether, you know, this work is going to be the panacea or has the gravitas or the recommendations thereof are strong enough to bring this issue to a halt, we are yet to see.
Okay.
I mean, I have my own reservations, and I've made them very clear. I am not a hypocrite. I say it the way it is, the way I see it. People may choose to disagree, but I believe that many Ghanaians agree with my position. Because when you say you have reinforced a ban, and yet the activity continues, goes all the way through the value chain that even the committee itself admits. And look, another allegation of corruption that, in spite of the committee saying that it didn't have adequate, and analyze the word adequate.
Yeah.
That means there was some. It wasn't enough.
It wasn't enough.
That in itself is very telling. But then they go on to say that the committee did, however, establish that there is widespread corruption along the value chain of the species. Now, how do you talk about corruption in the value chain of the species, and then you tell us that nobody can be held accountable?
No, but that's not exactly what it is. There's corruption, but the lack of adequate evidence has to do with the complicity of government officials.
And I am saying that the reason why there is an overall outright exoneration of public and government and party officials is because of the composition of the committee.
Which is disputed.
Well, the facts are very clear.
I mean, because if you listen to him, there are only 3 people you can link to the government. There.
No, that cannot be true.
All to the party.
You listen to the very important component of the EIA report. I read it earlier, and I'll just read the part. Quote, the group, which is the Chinese traffickers and their Ghanaian counterparts, that they got help through ruling party members and complicity at all levels of government. This is it. All levels of government, from the very basic level to the national level. Who mans government? Who are those in charge of the ministry? Who are those party members? The chair of the Parliamentary Subcommittee on Lands and Forestry is a member of the ruling party.
He admits that.
So he is within.
But he's just one of 3.
He is supposed to be on the committee.
Yeah.
The minister himself, who was not a member of the committee, but who formed the committee, is both a government official and a member of the ruling party. Benito Usubio, honorable, that we are speaking to, who chaired the committee, is a member of the ruling party and indeed a member of government. Customs, GRA, were also indicted in as far as, you know, the export of these illegally obtained rosewood.
Could you have done this work without a rep from Customs and GRA?
Yes, if you wanted to do a thorough job. I mean, Evans, it's very simple. You exclude all persons or entities whom have been indicted or have been alleged to be complicit. If government was truly serious about doing the work in a way that will satisfy, you know, the curiosities of Ghanaians, including myself. That is what they should have done. But you cannot expect people to go sit on a committee and then find themselves guilty or, you know, quote unquote, indict the institutions that they represent. It is impossible. So my main argument from the onset has always been that the composition of the committee in itself had determined the outcome. I did not expect this committee to come out and say, oh, so one government official or the other, or one party official or the other.
But that is where I guess we need to now begin to go into the substance, because you say they predetermined it. But if you really look at the findings, they found, and I want to quickly quote here, the field investigation reviewed that there were several institutional weaknesses and lapses in the rosewood trade, from the community level to the port's exit, due largely to highly informal nature of the trade. In fact, you've also read it.
No, I do.
I mean,
but who is in charge of all of these persons along the value chain?
You're actually reinforcing my question. My question then will be, you say they are finding that the problem persists.
Yes.
In serious measure. But by extension, they are indicting themselves because they are the supervisors of this particular sector. So how can they predetermine this and conclude that the problem we're supposed to be dealing with and solving actually is terribly worse under our watch? That actually reinforces the argument that they did an impartial job. Because if they're doing a job to protect themselves, they wouldn't have given you ammunition to say that, well, the thing was going on under your watch.
Well, the point is that all these other findings that they have made, these are findings against persons outside of government and public officials.
But isn't it true that there are people outside of government and public officials who are actually...
But who supervises the system? Who is in charge of the work? Yeah. Who appoints the ministers? Who appoints the DCs? Who appoints the forestry commissioners? Who appoints the staff? I
want to interrogate that a bit more. And Mr. Benito Owusu-Bio thankfully has rejoined us. I'm going to take a quick break. When I return, I'll get into the substance of where we just started on the findings and what it says about the illegal trade in rosewood, and then begin to look at the recommendations for solution. Stay with us. You're still live on PM Express tonight. My guest is still Mr. Dr. Clement Apak, who is the Member of Parliament for a place in the Upper East region where I visited in 2016.
From BC.
From BC.
Yeah, you received a rousing welcome.
Yes. How time flies. It's 4 years already.
Yeah, it's 4 years already. So it's time to repeat it.
Absolutely. Also with me is Benito Owusu-Bio. He's also a member of parliament, correct?
Yes.
I mean, Mr. Owusu-Bio, so you are in your constituency, correct?
Yes, I'm in my constituency.
Oh, forgive me again. That's which constituency? What's the name of the constituency?
Fourth term parliamentary.
Fourth term. Wow, you are a veteran. No. I mean,
he's a good guy. Just that we disagree on this.
Yes, I mean, I'm sure he concedes that. I mean, so Mr. Owusu-Bio, there's a fundamental question that needs to be examined, which is that your committee found that corruption persists along the entire value chain. The report has come out. Who is being held responsible for this corruption?
Thank you. What we said was that the Corruption Act is very widespread. Like I said previously, right from where they sell the trees up to the export level. Because this rosewood trade is very, very informal in nature. In the first place, what we need to know is that the trees are not in a forest reserve, which is headed by any forestry official, but mostly they are found in farms, people's farms. And the farmers do cut these trees with speculative intentions, to the extent that they hope that one day somebody will come and buy it from them. And then the middlemen also go around, buy it from them, and then wait for someone who would want to come and buy them and export it. As we speak now, for more than over a year, nobody has a service permit to salvage any of these rosewood trees or logs lying around the country. But then, some recalcitrant people are still moving around up in the northern part of our country and are still trying to fuel this trade by buying the logs that are on these farms from the farmers. It becomes very, very difficult for you to apprehend them. When we get them, once in a while, yes, the law is, we take them through the legal process to the extent that we jail some of them. But we would need everyone to also help us. People like the Honorable Dr. Apak, who comes from a region where this particular trade is very endemic, should also be helping us by assisting his district assembly and his community elders.
Which I have.
I mean,
to apprehend corporate. Because there's one, I've just even been informed that there's only one route through the entire constituency of the Honorable Dr. Apak. And if you have to actually transport rosewood within that constituency, it can only be through that particular route. So then it becomes very easy if the security agencies, the district assembly, and our community elders will all help us to be able to nip this in the bud.
Yeah, I mean,
as we speak now, the illegal trade in rosewood has come to its barest minimum.
And what are the numbers? What are the numbers? What are the numbers to prove that?
Yes, it is because of the work we've been doing.
No, I mean, I need. Forgive me. You made a very broad statement that it is at this minimum ever, and I'm asking, what are the numbers? You have to give me numbers to compare. Over what period, and what volumes now?
In terms of volume, it will be very difficult for me to put a particular.
So what's the basis of that conclusion?
I can tell you now that along the routes or the various main routes in Ghana, coming down to the south for exports, incidents of arrest of rosewood has dropped drastically.
Yeah, but I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but
now we are aware through our investigation, we are aware that the illegal exporters have changed their modus operandi, whereby now they are classifying the of rosewood.
I'm sorry, but when you make a general that the arrests have gone down, etc., but you have to. It has to be based on some factual basis.
For instance, it's to the extent that even the Forestry Commission's revenue from those species and even other species are dropped.
Okay.
That is it. Because look,
give me a second. Forgive me.
Even if they misclassify them, and then they try exporting them, they will still pay. Stumpies and these TIDD fees before they can take them out.
Before they can take them out. Give me a second. Let me bring in your colleague. Yeah, let me bring in your colleague. I mean, he makes a point about you helping the process, and he says your constituency has one route that makes it easier to track, but he doesn't.
Well, actually, my constituency doesn't have one route. We have several. I mean, if you are going to Busa South, you can go through Sanduma, Siniesi, Dorninga, then you turn left, and then you go to Kanjaga, and then Fumbisi, which is the constituency capital. Alternatively, from Sanduma, you go to Riaga, then you go to Gbedema, and then you get to Fumbisi. You can also exit, in fact, you can enter through the Wali area, where you can come through UAC, and then even UAC as well. So it is not true that there is only one route. But
what are you doing as a member of Parliament?
Yeah, I have been advocating. If anyone is listening who is from Busa South, they will tell you that when I go, usually every year, the end of the year, the early part of the new year, we have a number of community events. I speak about these things to my people and let them understand the value of the tree, the implications of, cutting them, and I admonish them not to yield to any persons who come there, presenting them with a document saying that they have a permit from government or forestry commission to log the wood.
Have you seen permits?
Oh, yeah.
Because there's a ban.
Well, it happens. Whether they are fictitious or they are real, the fact is that it is still happening. And you see, he made the point that because the trees are not on reserves, and he knows this, they are off reserve, that the indigents cut them with the hope to sell them. That is not true.
So what happens?
They don't have those chainsaws. We know for a fact that the same traffickers and their collaborators, they sponsor
the indigent
young men and women. Sometimes they even bring them from outside of the community.
Because you can salvage. You're allowed to.
Yeah, exactly.
So if they
under the guys,
that's already been failed.
So they fail them, and these same
get a permit to come
turn around to then apply for permits to salvage. And these trees, as I say, the logs didn't fall from the sky. Somebody is responsible for engineering the logging of the trees. And then they go back, get the permits, and then come and salvage them. But you see, the important point to make is this, and I know he would agree with me. The law is very clear. The Savannah Ecological Zone is a protected zone. By law, logging should not be allowed. Period. Simplicity. The only time that logging can go on or salvaging can go on is when there are economically valuable trees in the catchment area of a major developmental project. So, for example, when the Bui Dam was being constructed, there were these tree species around there. So it made sense to give permits for the trees to be salvaged. When the Fufusu Solar Road was being constructed, but in Bulsa South, there is no major economic, I feel like, major developmental project going on that should warrant anyone giving anybody a permit to go and salvage any trees there.
But he says no permits are given. So
well, that is what he is saying. That is what he is saying.
But because there's a ban.
I mean, if there is a ban, then the activity in itself should not even be going on.
Yeah, but he says that's illegal.
Why do we have the police?
It's happening.
Why do we have the DCs? Why do we have customs? Why do we have all those checkpoints and the barriers?
Yeah.
And yet it is still happening.
So I'm going to take another quick break. When we return, we'll wrap up by looking at the recommendations. And also, I'll ask Mr. Wusubio the question about where do we go from here? He says China is committing to ban the import. Really? We'll interrogate when we return. Still with me on PMS, there's a few minutes to wrap up. Mr. Wusubio is still with me. He's the Deputy Land and Natural Resources Minister. Mr. Wusubio, let's talk about the recommendations to end this. So after this report, what next?
Yes, what we said was that we are going to invite the security agencies, especially the VNI, to investigate two particular group of people who are also involved in this particular case. The first of them is the freight forwarders who have been exporting the Rosewood timber. Those who have been indicted, let's say, have been investigated, and they've come out with the fact that they have been helping to forge the documents that are used in exporting the illegal wood. And then also we want a forensic audit to be done on the department that handles the CITES certification. As we speak now, no CITES documentation is being issued to anybody. Yes. So if any wood is found anywhere in the world, and there's a CITES certification on it, and it says that it's coming from Ghana, we know that that particular certification will be a falsified one and nothing.
Okay.
Such would be illegal.
Okay, I see. So
this is the first. I would say this is the first part of our recommendation. The second portion of them is to also ask that the Forestry Commission, these various district officers, to bring together all the rosewood that are lying all over the northern part of Ghana. In our report, we did state that we came across several of them. Some of them are even found in some illegal sawmills, and they are still there. We've asked the district officers to put them together in one central location so that we can auction them to local producers of furniture.
Of furniture. I'm grateful for that, because that's one of the key things that has also come up. I have a few seconds. What do you say to that, and in terms of the way forward?
Well, I think that we wait to see how impactful the committee's report is going to be. I'm skeptical, but I have not lost hope. So we would all do our best to ensure that at least we stem this issue in the bud. BNI investigating, well and good, but let's see some public reprimand and action being taken against those involved. You remember the popular story of Helen Wang? Yeah. And suddenly she disappeared and reappeared, and before we could hear, she was in China. Yeah. When these kinds of things happen, you cannot expect the people to believe that government and the state is determined to punish those who are engaged in this illegality.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.